Tonight, you might reach for a tube of toothpaste without thinking twice. You might wince at the sound of a dentist's drill, then forget about it by lunch. A toothache to you is an inconvenience, a reason to book an appointment, a problem solved in an afternoon. But the real answer to what people did before any of that existed is far stranger than you think. Because long before there were dentists, there were toothaches, and the way humans responded to that pain reveals something unsettling about who you are, what you eat, and why your mouth is built the way it is. Start with the body itself. Your teeth are some of the hardest tissue you own, harder than bone, built to last a lifetime of chewing, grinding, and tearing. And yet, they fail. They rot. They ache in the middle of the night for no obvious reason. Why would something so tough be so easily broken? The answer starts almost 10,000 years ago in a place called Mehrgarh in what is now Pakistan. In 2006, a team led by anthropologist Alan Kappa published findings in the journal Nature that changed how scientists understood ancient pain. Buried in an early farming settlement, researchers found human molars with tiny, precise holes drilled into them, not from decay, from tools. Someone had drilled into living teeth on purpose. The holes were too clean, too deliberate to be accidental damage. Flint points, spun by hand or with a simple bow drill, had bored directly into the enamel. No metal, no anesthesia, just a sharp stone and a steady hand. The drilling matched the exact location where cavities tend to form, which means this wasn't ritual, it wasn't decoration, it was medicine. Picture that for a moment. A person in real pain, holding still, while another person presses a spinning flint tip against an exposed nerve. Why would anyone allow that? Because the alternative was worse. Untreated dental infections do not stay contained. They spread into the jaw, into the bloodstream, into the brain. For most of human history, a bad tooth could be a death sentence. So people endured a few unbearable minutes to avoid a much longer, much crueler death. That single discovery rewrote the dental timeline. Drilling for relief existed thousands of years before anyone assumed real medicine began. But pain relief wasn't only about removal. Sometimes it was about filling the gap left behind. In 2012, a team that included physical anthropologist Federico Bernardini examined a 6,500-year-old human jaw recovered in Slovenia. Inside one of the worn molars, they found a strange yellowish material packed tightly into a deep crack. After testing, it turned out to be beeswax, pressed in, almost certainly while the person was still alive, to seal an exposed area and ease the discomfort of biting down. It is now considered the oldest known dental filling on Earth. Think about what that means. Someone, thousands of years before the wheel was fully developed in most of the world, understood that sealing a wound reduces pain. They understood it well enough to apply that logic inside a human mouth. This wasn't accidental. This was problem solving, passed down, refined, and trusted enough to use on another person's body. Not every ancient solution was this practical, though. Some were built entirely on fear of the unknown. In Sumer, around 5,000 years ago, scribes pressed a story into wet clay that would shape dental belief for the next several thousand years. The legend of the worm describes a tiny creature born from swamp water that burrows into human teeth and feeds on the gums from the inside. The pain you feel is not decay, it's an invasion. This wasn't just folklore, it was treatment policy. Healers across the ancient Near East and later across Europe prescribed remedies meant to kill or expel this imaginary toothworm. Henbane seeds were burned and the smoke directed into the mouth through a tube. Beer-soaked cloths were packed against the gums. Oils believed to be toxic to worms were swished and spat. None of it worked, of course, because there was no worm. But here's what's strange. Some of these remedies accidentally numbed the area or reduced inflammation, just enough to convince people the worm theory was correct. A wrong idea kept alive for thousands of years by a treatment that worked for the wrong reason. So which version of ancient humanity is the real one? The precise drillers of Mehrgarh treating pain with mechanical logic? Or the worm-fearing healers of Sumer treating pain with ritual and smoke? The honest answer is both, depending on when and where you were born. And that brings us to the twist almost no one expects. For most of human existence, before farming, before bread, before sugar of any kind, tooth decay was rare. Bioarchaeologist Clark Spencer Larson has spent decades studying skeletal remains from populations that shifted from hunting and gathering into early agriculture. His research, along with similar studies across multiple continents, shows a consistent pattern. Hunter-gatherer skulls have remarkably few cavities. Once communities started farming grain, cavities exploded. Wild food was tough, fibrous, and low in the kind of starches that feed decay-causing bacteria. A diet of meat, roots, nuts, and seasonal fruit kept mouths relatively clean by accident. Then humans invented agriculture, and with it, soft, starchy, constantly available carbohydrates. The very innovation that fed civilization also rotted its teeth. Because your relationship with your teeth is still shaped by that exact trade-off. You live surrounded by more available sugar than any human in history has ever had access to. Your ancestors fought decay with scarcity. You fight it with a toothbrush, a tube of fluoride, and a biannual cleaning, trying to outpace a diet your body was never designed to handle. And the fear hasn't disappeared either. That flicker of dread before a dental appointment, the tension in your jaw at the sound of a drill, none of that is irrational. It's old. It's the same instinctive bracing that once meant a flint point was about to touch a nerve. Your brain still remembers, on some buried level, that mouth pain has always been serious, and that letting someone work inside it has always required real trust.
So, the next time you sit in that chair, anesthetic numbing the ache before it even starts, remember what came before. Remember the steady hand drilling through flint into living bone. Remember the beeswax pressed into a crack thousands of years before anesthesia existed. Remember the smoke and the worms and the desperate belief that something invisible was to blame. None of that was primitive ignorance. It was the best version of medicine available at the time, built from observation, trial, and the simple refusal to let pain win without a fight. Tonight, you might reach for a tube of toothpaste without thinking twice. But now you know what that small act of prevention is actually standing on top of. 10,000 years of fear, ingenuity, and the same nerve, aching the exact same way it always has.